Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of Storytime with Alex Cardinale. I'm your host, Alex Cardinale. Today is a really sad day in the history of the United States of America. Today is September 11th, and 20 years ago, on September 11th, 2001, which was a Tuesday, America came under attack. America was attacked by terrorists with ties to Al Qaeda. They hijacked four planes, flew two of them into the World Trade Center, and another one into the Pentagon, and the fourth plane was tended to hit either the Capitol or the White House. But thank God the Americans on Flight United 93 stopped that from happening. And we're going to talk about that on today's video. So today's video is going to be a little bit more of a serious topic and a rather sad topic because on this day in 2001, 20 years ago, thousands of people lost their lives. Lots of family members lost their sons, their daughters, their brothers and their sisters, their moms and their dads. So lots of lives were destroyed on this day 20 years ago. So if you are tuned in live, I appreciate your view. I really do. This is going to be a really special episode of Storytime with Alex Cardinale. So Pompey Ranch says, hello, Alex. Hi, Poppy Ranch. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate your view. So since this is the 20-year memorial of 9/11, I figured this would be a very special edition of Storytime with Alex Cardinale. I figured you guys would really appreciate me doing a video on this. So today I'm going to share my thoughts and my experiences on 9/11. I also have four American guests who are going to be joining me to share their experiences on what it was like to learn about 9/11, one of whom was actually involved in the search and rescue efforts at Ground Zero of the World Trade Center in New York City, which we're going to talk about. So when 9/11 happened, I was actually only 8 years old. I was in the third grade of elementary school. So, as you can imagine, I really did not know what was going on. Before we get started, if you are watching live, in the comments or in the live chat, please feel free to share your thoughts on what happened 20 years ago and how it affected you. Because I was 8 years old at the time, I think it would be beneficial for me to learn from other people how it affected them and where they were 20 years ago. So, like I said earlier on, I will have special guests who recorded videos from Americans playing throughout the live stream tonight, sharing their thoughts on the attacks and what they thought of it and what they've learned from it. All right, having said that, let's get right into today's video. So, my memory of 20 years ago, 8 years old, Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, is not really that vivid. I don't really remember much, but here is what exactly I do remember. I was 8 years old at the time, and I was in the third grade, and school was just starting. So it was like 8:50, 9 o'clock in the morning, and the teacher was taking attendance. Now, this was very unusual because what happened next never happened in my school. All of a sudden, the teacher turned on the television and I thought we were going to watch a movie. The television never turned on. It only turned on for special occasions like a movie day or something like that. So I thought we were watching a movie or something. But instead of a movie, the news was put on, and she instructed us to watch the news. So on the news, I saw the North Tower of the World Trade Center on fire. Now, I didn't even know what the World Trade Center was at the time, so I just saw a big building on fire with a hole in the middle of it. So she was explaining to us what was happening and how she thought that this was an accident. Now, as soon as she said this was an accident, the second plane hit the South Tower of the World Trade Center, and every student in the class was freaking out, as you can imagine. So she was comforting us and told us that this most likely was a terrorist attack and told us what terrorists are, etc. And that obviously did not help the case at all, as many people were getting more frantic and more fearful. So it was a very, very sad day, to say the least. A very scary time. Even at 8 years old, I was scared and uh, shocked at what was going on. So after I saw the World Trade Center on fire, she shut off the TV and stepped out of the room while we had another teacher watching us. I guess she went to ask what they were going to do. But eventually, the principal came on the intercom and told us that we were being sent home to be with our families. And I briefly remember the principal making an announcement about God bless America. So, being 8 years old and naive, I knew absolutely nothing. I was just happy to go home. So, when I got home, I remember watching the news and seeing my parents and great grandma and grandparents freaking out about what was going on. Because we then found out about the Pentagon being hit by another airplane, and then we found out about United 93, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes here on this special video on 9/11. So I'm going to read some of the live comments, and then we're going to hear from my very first American who witnessed 9/11. So we have a viewer by the name of Sid Harsh, PS4 Gamer. Hello, thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing to my channel. Diane says, so glad you are doing this, Alex. We need these kinds of tributes for more Americans. Thank you, and I do agree with that statement. A lot more people should be doing that. All right, let's get to my first video. This one is from a friend of mine by the name of Big Tank Hank. He is from Texas.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Big Tank Hank, coming at you for Alex Cardinale. 9/11. Where was I? I was working at Lawrence Marshall Chevrolet in Hempstead, Texas, small town. Oh, early morning, I was at the Coffee Caddy in the sales showroom making me a cup of coffee. Over to my left was the TV in the lobby, and I noticed there were salesmen gathered around this TV and the couches. So as I'm looking over my shoulder, I'm looking over at the screen, I see the planes going to the towers. I'm thinking to myself, movie trailer. But they're fixed on the screen, they're mesmerized. So I asked somebody, hey man, new movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger, what's going on? Sylvester Stallone? He was like, no, the terrorists, they just crashed some planes into the towers, New York City. What? I guess it still didn't soak in at the time. So I went on, finished making my coffee, went back over to my department, make ready. And I noticed that my manager, he was just in a trance at his computer in the back of the office at the desk. So I asked him what was going on. He told me what was going on. And it was still so crazy to me. We're Americans, we can't be touched, That's the mentality. And for someone to show us that we can be touched and that we should pay more attention to our borders, pay more attention to our politics, pay more attention to how we treat people or allow ourselves to be treated, how it affected me. I'm not a person that overreacts to anything, and if nothing is going on directly in front of me where it's going to touch me or my family physically or immediately, I don't overreact. I took it for exactly what it was. That wasn't anything that I could change in the way that I was living my own life personally. But it just let me know, being fat, complacent, as Americans, we just need to do better. Because there's other people looking at that, being envious, having a desire to have the things that we're afforded. We should realize how much that we are blessed, and to not take other people for granted in those situations. No, the factions that did this were evil, yes. But we take all these scenarios for granted to the extent to where we leave ourselves open to attack. God bless the USA. Shout out to all those first responders that was on the spot, that gave their lives to save the people that they could save. God bless the families for those that weren't saved and those who haven't even been found even till today. Y'all be good. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families. I am Big Tank Hank on YouTube. I'm a fish tuber. I own fish, aquarium fish. Buy, sell, trade, to the public as well as the fish family. I have a live stream where I bring people in, new YouTubers, established big YouTubers. I bring them all in, to give them a safe place to be introduced to everyone else in the hobby so they can seem more approachable, and for those new people, give them a platform, to show their wares or to show their desire and their passion for the fish hobby. Go check me out, Big Tank Hank, live stream, 10:30, Friday nights, Central Time. Y'all be blessed on this 9/11. And remember, those that couldn't be here to see this today. Peace.
Thank you, Big Tank Hank, for that wonderful video and sharing with us your information on September 11th and where you were when this horrible tragedy happened. So as I said earlier, I was 8 years old when this happened. I was very naive, and I did not know much about terrorists or the World Trade Center or even the Pentagon. So right now, I would like to talk about what happened on September 11th, 2001. For everyone that is watching me from across the world who may not know why this day is so important. So what happened on September 11th, 2001, 4 planes were hijacked with 3 of them flying into 3 very important buildings into the United States of America. 2 of them went into the World Trade Center, and 1 of them went into the Pentagon. And the fourth one we'll talk about in a few moments. So American Airlines Flight 11, which was a Boeing 767 aircraft, departed Logan Airport, which is in Boston, Massachusetts, at 7:59 a.m. en route to Los Angeles, California, with a crew of 11 and 76 passengers, not including 5 hijackers. The hijackers flew the plane into the northern facade of the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City at 8:46 a.m. United Airlines Flight 175, a Boeing 767 aircraft, departed Logan Airport at 8:14 a.m. en route to Los Angeles with a crew of 9 and 51 passengers, not including 5 hijackers. The hijackers flew the plane into the southern facade of the South Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City at 9:03 a.m. So, um, a lot of people were just arriving to work when this happened. So, some of them were already at the top floors where the plane hit. So, if you were above impact, unfortunately, it was too late for you. There is nothing that can be done to save you. A lot of people assumed that they could climb to the top and get help by a helicopter, but with the intense heat, that wasn't possible. So most of the deaths from the World Trade Center came from above impact. If you were below impact and you were very fast, there was a good chance that you could get out of the World Trade Center, which is very, very sad. The third plane, American Airlines Flight 77, which was a Boeing 757 aircraft, departed Washington Dulles International Airport at 8:20 a.m., which was en route to Los Angeles with a crew of 6 and 53 passengers, not including 5 hijackers. The hijackers flew the plane into the western facade of the Pentagon in Arlington County, Virginia at 9:37 in the morning. So the airplane on its way to the Pentagon actually knocked down light poles and actually also hit a generator. And then it flew into the Pentagon, killing hundreds of people there. So these hijackers did a lot of damage to the United States of America that day. Now, here is the heroic heroism that was shown in the United States. That is the United Airlines Flight 93, which was a Boeing 757 aircraft which departed Newark International Airport at 8:42 a.m. It was en route to San Francisco, which had a crew of 7 and 33 passengers, not including the 4 hijackers. Passengers attempted to subdue the hijackers. The airplane crashed into a field in Stony Creek Township near Shanksville, Pennsylvania at 10:03 a.m. The fourth plane was likely headed to the United States Capitol or the White House. So their target was either the United States Capitol or the White House in Washington. Now, unfortunately, both of the towers in the World Trade Center were demolished. The South Tower collapsed at 9:59 a.m., having burned for 56 minutes in total in a fire caused by the impact of United Airlines Flight 175 and the explosion of its fuel. The North Tower collapsed at 10:28 a.m. after burning for 102 minutes, sadly. So, a total of 2,977 people were killed in the attacks along with the 19 hijackers. Of those, 246 were on the four planes, 2,606 were in the World Trade Center and the surrounding area, and 125 were at the Pentagon. Most deaths were civilians, but 344 firefighters, 71 law enforcement officers, and 55 military personnel were also killed. So this is a very, very tough tragedy for us to relive even 20 years later because of all the amount of life that was lost. Now, it ranges in age. Some people weren't even born yet. They were still, the mother was still pregnant and they lost their life. Some kids died in New York City. I think it was like a nursery or a kindergarten place that was under the World Trade Center. And then I remember reading there was kids on a field trip from Washington that was heading to California that was sponsored by National Geographic, and they were on one of the planes that hit the World Trade Center. So it is a very, very, very horrific and sad day for people that were living in the United States of America. But one of the good things to come from 9/11 is that the Americans on Flight 93 were able to stop another terrorist attack that would have happened on another big United States building like the United States Capitol or the White House. So eventually they subdued the hijackers and they got to the cockpit, and eventually the hijackers crashed into a field, killing everyone on the plane. Very, very sad. But everyone on Flight 93 is remembered as a hero, and their lives will never be forgotten because they saved the White House and they saved the Capitol from destruction on a day that is already horrific. So I would like to say thank you to everybody on United 93 for stopping another tragedy from occurring. But it really is sad that everybody who died above impact in the World Trade Center, it's sad all the firefighters, the police officers, and the military personnel, they all lost their lives. It's just a horrific day that happened. I hope it never happens again. And I hope no one has to go through what these family members went through 20 years ago. So right now, I ask that you please join me for a moment of silence for everyone who lost their life on September 11th, 2001, or from complications caused by September 11th, 2001, which we'll talk about in a few moments. So please join me for a brief moment of silence. I'm going to turn my camera off for the moment of silence. Alrighty, thank you so much for joining me for that moment of silence. And if you ever make it to New York City, I definitely recommend checking out the World Trade Center Museum or the September 11th Museum, and you could pay homage to all the victims of this horrific tragedy. So, to this day, rescuers are still suffering health effects from 9/11. Firefighters, police officers, and paramedics, and even people who are part of the search and rescue have been diagnosed with things like post-traumatic stress disorder, Some have been diagnosed with cancer and other lung issues. And now I read a report on the website that people were being diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia from all the toxic air that came from the World Trade Center. So it's really sad seeing that people are still suffering 20 years later with all these illness. So hopefully people get better, but it really is sad what happened because of what happened 20 years ago. My next video comes from my friend Jeremy Stellhorn. He is from Illinois, and 9/11 haunts him to this day. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Stillhorn. This is my submission of where you were when 9/11 happened. At the time, I was cleaning the office or the break room office in the school I worked at, and I saw the plane go into the second tower. The first tower was already smoke, and I kind of walked in and was gonna see what was going on, just clean the room up and stuff, and I saw that, and then we didn't have the teachers with their phones and stuff, so then they were spreading around to the different teachers and stuff. There was a lot of fear. There were a lot of parents that were coming to get their kids, not knowing what was going to happen. We live by a place called Scott Air Force Base in Belleville, Illinois, which isn't terribly far away. So there was a lot of concern about a plane trying to come down or terrorists coming down into the Air Force Base, or even people were scared that they would actually come into the college. I remember I'm a pretty big guy, and some of the ladies were so upset, and that was what they were telling everybody is, well, don't worry, Jeremy will take care of you. And, you try to put on a brave face, but you're like, yeah, I don't think the terrorists are coming, but if they do, I'm one person against them all. But that was my story. Is it was kind of, I didn't really kind of believe it, or, at first I saw it and I thought it was a big accident. And then after all the fear and stuff, it was just one of those days that you're ready to be home and kind of be done, home with your family instead of kind of out in the craziness. It was a really wild day on 9/11. All right. Thanks, Alex. Bye.
Thank you, Jeremy, for that great video. I appreciate your input. So my next two videos are from great personal friends of mine. Catherine is a fellow podcaster, and she is one of the best podcast friends I've ever had. She has helped me become a better podcaster, and she experienced a lot from 9/11. Also joining her in her video that she filmed for me is her boyfriend, who actually aided in the search and rescue efforts at Ground Zero from 9/11. So they're going to share their thoughts, and they're going to tell us all what they experienced from 9/11. So we're going to watch it right now.
You are live. Hello, TNTBS Media family. Mr. and Mrs. TNTBS here. We wanted to take a moment and look back at 9/11, 20 years ago, when all of our lives changed. To me, similar to what we're dealing with the pandemic, because everyone's life is touched even now, and we're having another shift. But today is not about the pandemic. Today is about September 11th, 2001, when the Twin Towers were flown into intentionally, and everyone's life was changed because we didn't know that was going to happen. As far as my understanding was 20 years ago, the United States has the best security. So that was not supposed to happen here. So that became something that terrified us, because if that could happen and we're supposed to be the best and well secured, how did this happen and what's next? So there was a widespread panic as a result of that. So we are going to take a moment of silence as we conclude talking with you all today, but we want to just Go back and think about that moment when life changed for us 20 years ago. Where were you? What was happening for you? And if you remember exactly what changed, I think everything changed, but that's too broad for myself. But when I say everything, everything changed. But what changed for you if you remember? In 20 years, it just doesn't seem like it's been 20 years. So, honey, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's answer the first question. That's easy. Where was I? I was active duty, and I was in the beginning years of being active duty in the Navy in Norfolk, Virginia. Um, I'm one of the many plank owners of the USS Baton LHD-5, which was birthed or docked at Pier 11. We had just was working on our workups. For those of you guys who don't speak military,
Exactly. Please
workup
translate. Thank you.
workups workups is basically you going out and you are practicing. You're practicing every day. I'm trying to break this thing down real quick. You're practicing um, your skill sets, what you're doing individually, what you're doing together as a department, what you're doing together as ship's company, what are you doing together as joint operations with other branches. In the Navy, we are cohesive with the Marines, and just like Army is to the Air Force. But then when we all get together, we are the United States military forces, armed forces. So anyway, we had just broken down into what we call a skeleton crew. Skeleton crew is just basically just enough people to keep the ship manned and ready, because the military is always ready 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, literally.
Okay.
So we were in skeleton crew, and I happened to have duty that particular day. And we just so happened to have the news running, and right during we're watching, weather and everything else. Of course, you get this big red breaking news notification across the TV, and at first, we had the volume down, and we turned it up because it looked weird. Like, why is the building on fire? And because you're reading the banner, you're reading the banner, and it's saying Twin Towers on fire or crash or something like that. It was breaking news, so we was receiving the information as it was going live. And so right about this time, evidently we were looking at the second building. And in the background, as they were going live, I mean, it put chills all through my body to see in the background the airplane looked like it was going away, but then it came around, and they actually had just enough of it. You actually see it curve in, and boom, it hits the building. And me and a couple other guys that was working in my department at the time, we were just in utter shock. We were just like, did that just happen?
Right.
Was that on purpose, or was it accidental?
Right.
Within the hour, we get what you call naval messages, and coming from the Joint Chiefs of Staff and stuff like that. Ain't no need for me to go that high and all this stuff. But anyway, we get it coming down from the big dog himself, from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, stars. Lock down all military bases, recall everybody back, because we're about to go see what's happening across the pond. The pond meaning the Atlantic, because we're East Coast. That's when we knew that crap was real, and that was a terrorist attack. And so within the next hour or so, if you have any idea, Norfolk Naval Base is the biggest naval base in the world, just simply because of where we're stationed and how we are positioned on the East Coast. And Like I said, we was broke down to skeleton crew. So my job was to recall by phone everybody that had just went on leave.
Mm-hmm.
Because the purpose of our ship was we were already getting ready to go on our 6-month deployment, but we end up going early. So in essence, our 6-month deployment end up being, I don't want to exaggerate it, I want to say about a 8-month deployment or something like that, because we had to respond. And so we were the first fleet to shoot across the Atlantic and be sitting off the coast of 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 the Mediterranean. And well, before we do that, we also pick up the Marines. So, people are being picked up, flown, helicoptered in.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, by every and any means necessary of every aircraft, of every anything that float. If you had to be on our ship, we was just gathering people because we had to get out there. So yeah, it changed. It changed the way that we do security on all our gates. Before, we had almost like an open door policy. Before 2020, before 2001, that was it's called conditions. And I think before that all that happened, we would just be in a relaxed state. I could tell you the conditions, but again, I'm gonna keep it civilian. So basically, it was like an open door policy. If you
And
had
that
an ID,
changed.
right? If you just had an ID, or if you were just coming to visit, you didn't have to have a purpose. It was like going into your local grocery store. Hey, welcome to Norfolk Navy Base. And just obey our rules, and you're good. But all of
that definitely changed security. I think as a civilian, because I don't know military jargon, so you all hear me saying to my husband, make sure you tell us. But he called himself in the beginning. I'm like, yeah, because I don't always know what he's talking about when it's military stuff. So break it down for us. But for civilians, wanting to travel became more tedious. Getting on a plane and of course, the comedians, grabbed a hold of, how you had to get searched to go through after this. So the day 20 years ago, I had a regular job. I was working at Cigna Healthcare. I was not protecting and serving. I was not in military. However, I was making sure that people's bills got processed, because one of the leading things to bad credit is medical bills. And sometimes it's hard to get those forgiven or removed. So I was very good at my job, not because I understood that, but I was very good at my job, making sure that people who had them paid, everything is medically necessary and get these bills paid. But I was at my desk, which is ironic because I'm usually socializing and speaking to other people, but I happened to be at my desk and someone said, hey, a plane just flew into one of the Twin Towers. So there's a TV downstairs in the break room, and just like you all had the TV on silent, so did we, because it was just something that you'd look at in the break room, not really because you're supposed to be down there too long.
It's like an ambient.
Yeah, like that. So by the time I get downstairs, and it's not a long way, I mean, it's like maybe 15 steps. You get downstairs, the second tower is being crashed into, so you see it happening. Like, what? I'm thinking they're replaying what happened the first time, because someone just told me, told the group of us that one of the twin towers had just been flown into. So wasn't an accident? Did a pilot, fall asleep, or what happened? Because you're not thinking that there was a security breach. Not at all. And silly of me, I guess, to take it for granted and be irritated with Cigna for making us have a badge and go through security. We were already pretty secure where we were, so that was good. But I appreciated it more after that. I was glad I had my magnetized badge and a security guard, but that was terrifying. And then if you had family in that area that worked in that area, lived in that area,
Mm-hmm.
I think some people, it took a long time for them to even know with, clarity if their loved one was dead or alive.
Yeah,
So
that was the saddest part. Like,
yeah.
because, I mean, I even had family in New York. Now, we weren't
Mhm.
necessarily close, but, and mind you, it even made my skin crawl a little bit just to even know that that happened, because
Mhm.
we were there in the Navy enjoying Fleet Week, literally the year before. And if it's one thing that the Navy loved, is how um, New York always accepted uh, the Navy in
Mhm.
particularly, but us, being active duty military, they welcomed us with open arms every year. So we look forward to going up there, and we can go anywhere, do anything,
Mhm.
hop in rides, open bars. I mean, the whole nine clubs. I mean, they just totally and completely just spoil us. All
Mhm.
we had to do was just be in our uniforms, and and they don't have to know you. They'll just be like, "Hey, come on over here, sailor," and you're just like, "What?" So I mean,
Mhm.
all
But
of I mean,
that
all of that
changes because
changed.
that
All of
climate now, yeah, that
it.
climate now, when we went up there to visit a few years ago to visit Ground Zero, it was
Oh
still
man,
emotional
yeah, it was.
then. And our host, had I known, we just would have watched it from a view because it was super emotional for her, but she wanted us to not miss that opportunity while we were there. And
Yeah,
thinking about it now is making my eyes water. It's something that changed in a matter of seconds. And for people who really love their family and care about their family, but you might have a rift with them. This 20 years ago, this day made everyone just forget about race for a period of time. Everybody knew who God was.
it.
I think that the sale of Bibles even went up that year.
Yeah,
So a lot of things changed. Just the way
yeah.
you look at life.
I mean, like all the things that we're fussing and fighting about, like right now.
Hmm.
Everything from, like you said earlier in the show, from the what you think is a pandemic, a plandemic, whether you red or blue or purple, whether
Mm.
you are black or white, uh, whether we're fussing over sexual identities and all this stuff, all these things mean nothing when it comes to the massive loss of human life. And
Yeah.
especially when it's in your house.
That
'Cause-
is something I never imagined happening. Something you see in movies and in other countries. So
Mhm.
that was I have no words for it even now. It was what could
Mhm.
happen next? What could happen next, you know?
Well, and see, whenever I think about what is the purpose of a terrorist, like what are their goals? Like we know, like if you was to Google the meaning terrorist or terrorist activity, we all know very much by now about how we defined it. But just breaking down the word itself is to terrify, is to keep that notion of fear
Mm-hmm.
in the back of your mind at all times, that I'm not safe. Anything can happen at any given time in any given
Mm-hmm.
moment. And see,
Mm-hmm.
before, we as Americans, as a culture, we just took life for granted.
Yeah.
Everything. We took our
Because
liberties for granted. We took, you
because
know,
no one is better than us. I mean,
right,
the
right,
arrogance of a people. America is the best place. And I
popular.
agree with that. I mean, somebody else may think that their country is better, but I believe that America is the best thing popping. But we are
Even with
not
all our
invincible.
problems,
We are
even
not.
with all our problems, yeah. And we have some major ones,
Yeah.
but we are still Take it from a Navy man that has traveled the world 3 times. Yes, out of all this crap we got going on with racism, police killing innocent black people and other people of color, and politics, Biden versus the Trump cronies, and it all kinds of stuff, uh y'all, we are still the best country
Even
in the
with all
world
that
right now.
mess, but not to take it for granted. Hun, we are doing this video as a gift to our audience as well as our friend Alex Cardinale. He is doing a Where Were You 20 years ago in remembrance of 9/11. So we want to wrap this up so we can get it to him for his
Okay.
show later tonight. So we're going to air again tonight.
All right.
But as promised, I want to do the moment of silence, and
Okay.
then we're going to get this video over to Alex. Thank you, everyone,
Thank
for
you.
listening. And if you have comments, let us know where you were 20 years ago and what changed in your life. There we go. We're going to take a moment of silence. Did I give everybody enough time? Sometimes I'm too quick. All right. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time on a lighter note.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, my friend Catherine Jones and her husband, for that wonderful video. I could have not said anything better. You did a great job, and I agree with everything that you guys mentioned. So, 9/11, 2001, definitely one of the worst days in the history of our country, but we stood strong, and we are still the best country in the whole world, even despite our big tragedy, despite losing thousands of people and all the rescuers who died, and even despite losing the World Trade Center and part of the Pentagon. So I always think to myself, what would happen if there were smartphones and the technology that we have today 20 years ago? Would there still be thousands of deaths? Would there still be this great of impact? I don't know. We'll never know. But it's a great question to think. If people had known that a plane had flown into the Northern Tower, would they have gone to the World Trade Center to get into the South Tower, to work in the South Tower? Um, or even like the lower levels of the North Tower? I think a lot of lives could have been spared if there were smartphones and better internet back in 2001. So I think we are very grateful now that we all have smartphones and we all have access to technology and the internet, because now as soon as we hear about something that's going on, we can stay home and be safe. A lot of people didn't have that option in 2001 because there was not as much information going out there. So I am grateful for that we now have the technology to keep us safe. So right now I want to talk about what 9/11 2001 has taught us as Americans. The first and most important thing is we should live life to the fullest. We should live happy lives, but most importantly, we should cherish life with the people we love. We should be cherishing life with our parents, our siblings, and all of our family members, and also all of our personal friends and everybody that we connect with. We should be happy with our coworkers, our employers, and everybody that we get in touch with, because life is short and you never know when your day and your life is going to end. So this national tragedy has taught me something, and ever since 9/11, 2001, since I was 8 years old to where I am today, 28, I have lived life to the fullest. I love everybody that I meet until they push my buttons. But even then, I am quick to forgive most people. And I live my life with no regrets and no grudges. Another thing that 9/11 has taught us is that freedom is not free. Freedom is not free because we have people in the military, our soldiers are constantly defending our country, and sometimes they pay the ultimate price. They lose their life defending our country. The rescuers that day defended their lives, risked their lives to help people escape the burning building, to help find people in the debris of the collapse. Hundreds of firefighters and police officers and paramedics, they risked their lives, and many of them ended up losing their lives when the towers came crashing down. And thanks to those rescuers who lost their lives, hundreds of people got out of the building alive. Some with severe injuries, but they were still alive. So I think a lot of people should always remember that freedom is not free, because our freedom is provided to us by the military, is provided to us by the police officers who go to all these tragedies like mass shootings and 9/11, and of course the firefighters that have to go into these raging infernos to save people. Now, another thing that I think 9/11 has taught us is that uniting together helps make a better country. We are called the United States of America after all, therefore, we should always be united. Whether you're black, white, gay, straight, whatever, we should all be together and be a part of one. We should all be a part of the United States of America. And I think this tragedy has helped make everybody be united, because everybody was so worried about helping out each other in 9/11. I remember watching the news and seeing people donating food and beverages to the rescuers at Ground Zero and things like that. So it's always in the tragedy in the United States of America when we see Americans always come together to help. That's why when other countries have tragedies, they come to us looking for assistance, because we unite together and we help them out. That's why America has stood strong in the face of adversity, and that is why it is one of the best countries in the world. Despite our problems today, we remain one of the best countries in the entire world. So that is what 9/11 has taught us Americans. So that is everything that I have for you. I want to appreciate everybody that took the time to submit a video sharing what 9/11 meant to them, where they were when this tragedy took place. And again, I want to end this video with another moment of silence for the thousands of people who lost their lives, all the rescuers who lost their life, and all the passengers who lost their lives on the planes, and especially those on United 93 who stopped stopped another attack on another United States building. So let's take a quick moment of silence, and then when we come back, we'll do a Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America, and then we will end this video. Alrighty, thank you for joining me for a moment of silence. Right now, I'm going to lead us into a Pledge of Allegiance to the United States to celebrate America, and then we'll end this video. So here we go, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, with that being said, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Story Time with Alex Cardinale. I really, really hope you enjoyed this video. And as an American, I appreciate your view. And hopefully, we will never, ever have another tragedy like this occur. So, in the next few years, hopefully, I will be able to interview some survivors from 9/11. That is my plan. I plan on hopefully getting some survivors from 9/11 to come on in 2022, 2023, etc. So once again, thank you all for tuning in to this special episode of Storytime with Alex Cardinale. And make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale. God bless America. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you for watching. Peace out, everybody.